Anasyon, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, excellencies, of course, but I name first the youth. I'm very happy to continue these ambassador talks with some remarks from the European Union. Even the EU was mentioned so often in the two speeches before that I will try to give some added value from the perspective in Brussels and from the work what an EU ambassador is doing at all. Because I tell you, we are working very closely together here. All the ambassadors from the European member states, 21 are in Seoul, and Charles and Fabienne are between my closest colleagues. We cooperate in any issue you can imagine. I invite all my colleagues every month to sit together, to discuss, to plan joint actions and increase the visibility of the EU as a whole, besides the important and also the small member countries here in Brussels. In fact, today is a special day for our EU-Korea relations. This morning I just held a press conference because we celebrate 5 years of our free trade agreement. And accidentally, also today, our new satellite navigation agreement entered into force. 2 days ago, we had our human rights consultations between the EU and Korea. And next week, I will launch the EU Green Gateway program to Korea, because we like to bring in the next 5 years about 1,000 companies here in order to contribute to the greening of the Korean economy, to build joint ventures, increase trade, the exchange of technology, and we cooperate increasingly also in this field. And a few days later, I will launch, together with the Korean Minister for Environment, our joint action for implementing, in fact, improving the implementation of the emission trading system in Korea. So you see, the EU-Korea relations are in full swing. Whatever happens in Europe, challenges, even when they are increasing, we try to meet them. In the joint committee meeting we had last year, this is the highest annual meeting between officials from both sides, we have established a new working group for counterterrorism. I say this just after the tragic events in Istanbul and all other events which happened also in European capitals in this year. And we have established a working group also for energy, climate and environment, because we think we should exchange more in this important field, where Korea as a major trade country, one of the biggest exporters, and the 8th biggest emitter of greenhouse gases in the world, could also have a much more deeper exchange for the joint value added. I should end this series of meetings with telling you that very soon, in less than a month's time, we will have another summit meeting between President Park and the European presidents Tusk and Juncker in Ulaanbaatar, because we cooperate, most European countries and most Asian countries, 53 countries altogether, in the Asia-Europe meeting every year, and so on and so on. So I can just tell you that the EU, in fact, gives a big added value to what the individual member states, the 28, do themselves bilaterally. Everything happens according to the competences which are shared in some issues between Brussels and the member states. We are staying mostly out of cultural issues because we apply the subsidiarity principle. What the member states can do better, they should do, and when we can come in, we do it. So I have just to ask you, of course, don't forget the other 26 member countries when you plan studying in Europe. I couldn't offer you now a speech in 24 languages, but we have the oldest European universities on the continent, in Bologna, in Prague, in Heidelberg. You have the oldest diplomatic academy of the world in Vienna. And as I've also studied abroad, it's very interesting to live in two worlds when you study. You can study in all our member countries, I think also in France, even in English language. So don't be shy to arrive without the local language, but you can then further dive into another culture when you go to the country which most European students prefer, Spain, or you can go to a small place in Malta or in Ireland or in the Baltic countries where lifestyles are still very European, but different to the big centers, to the big countries. So just to complete what was said about this issue. And in fact, yes, I should also say a few words about trade, because trade and economic relations are the backbone of European-Korean relationship. Korea is our 8th biggest trade partner in the world. And we are here together, the 28 countries, the 2nd biggest trade partner of Korea. And our relationship has flourished the last 5 years with our free trade agreement, when overall trade has increased by more than 20%, trade in services even more than a third, and investments, in particular from Korea, have increased to Europe. We produce in Czech and Slovak Republic in the moment about 600,000 Kia and Hyundai cars every year. And just today, also as the FTA enters fully in force, also after some in-phasing, all the customs duties for small cars in both directions between Korea and Europe will fall. So you can buy much cheaper in the future Minis from England, Renaults, Fiat, Skoda, and we might see more Kias and Hyundai on European streets. Because Korea has a trade relationship with Europe as no other country in Asia. We are still negotiating already 3 years to have a free trade agreement with Japan. And we hope that these negotiations will not be delayed by several events in Europe. But all partners who have agreement in force can build on the safe ground what is going to happen. And I see further perspectives for even more trade and exchange between Korea and EU. 90 billion euro is the annual trade turnover. We couldn't count the number of jobs Korean enterprises create in Europe and European enterprises do here. And we address in our regular meetings here, this is one important job of the delegation, also small shortcomings where this trade relationship can still be improved. So we want even do more in the future, and we tackle small issues, but not unimportant issues, when we have still closed market in some areas. For example, you cannot eat European beef here, because for 10 years already we try to also import beef from Europe here. Pork meat is fine, other products, everything is open, but there are issues left for this future. So we are very busy also in the day-to-day management of these trade issues. And how important, how valuable this trade relation is also for Korea just is shown during the last couple of months. You know that Korean export globally has shrinked, that your biggest market in China has even seen a 20% decline of export. But on the opposite side, Korean exports to the EU have been growing. So a free trade agreement is really a firm base for our relationship. It builds the possibilities for further expansion in all areas, because trade, economy is not all. We also intend to have much more people-to-people contact. And in fact, we have a political relationship, of course, going far beyond trade and investment. And even this trade agreement is not only something for companies or enterprises, it's for every consumer who can buy cheaper goods and a greater variety of goods. It's for opening public procurement, for technology transfer. We have, of course, to protect European brands and designs from copying. And we try to bring more service from Europe. We just undertook initiatives that also the lawyers' market will be opened in both ways, giving chances for young generation to work in both continents, in Korea and in Europe. This is, again, the backbone of what we are doing together daily. But we have a political agreement which covers practically all the other areas. It entered full into force also recently in parallel with a trade agreement. And in the framework of our political agreement, we speak practically about everything. About counterterrorism, as I said before, about human rights, about development policy, about cooperation in environment, climate, energy issues. There is no matter outside education. We hope that the Korean government, for example, will soon also launch a program to extend scholarships for students coming to Europe, to increase the number, whatever country they like to go, as we have our Erasmus Plus program, which invites students from Korea to come to Europe. And I brought you some brochures outside about the European Visitors Program, where we select every year a number of multipliers, high flyers, to come to Europe, to visit the institutions in Brussels and travel around and see also capitals of some member states. So our political agreement is the framework for everything we do in all the areas, and this keeps, in fact, also the ambassador here and our small delegation in the center of Seoul very busy, very active throughout the year. And I should mention a third agreement we have signed. We have signed already 2 years ago, and the National Assembly still has to ratify. This is an agreement about crisis cooperation, about cooperation in crisis regions. We have already Korean ships around the Horn of Africa to protect free navigation and trade routes between Europe and Asia, and we would like to work more together in this area. We think, yes, that Korea could, again, as a G20 member, as one of the leading economies of the world, take more global responsibility, also in hard security areas. And whenever we help Afghanistan, or we tackle the refugee issue, and we have European Peace Corps or policemen in Africa, or we do this in Philippines, in Aceh, in Mindanao, we always think that it would be good that Koreans would be on our side, and therefore we are impatiently waiting that the new National Assembly will really start working and ratify our agreement so we can extend our cooperation also in this field. When I came to Korea last year, 10 months ago, it was in fact not the first time for me. I was, as a director in Brussels for East Asia, already often here before. I had my first trip about your age 30 years ago, where I was just curious how Seoul looks like after I have been on a business trip back from Japan. And it's with this background that I have developed also a strong empathy for how Korea looks like today, how this miracle in economic terms happened, but how still the country is divided. I'm myself a citizen of a country which was divided. In fact, I'm a double citizen of a country of Eastern Europe. So I know how it is to live on both sides of the wall, and therefore it was also very motivating for me last year to travel to Pyongyang, to lead the critical dialogue we had then with North Korea, when in the moment the door is completely closed and we cannot even talk about important human rights or humanitarian issues with the North. So one important element of our policy, of course, is also the solidarity with the peace-loving people in South Korea, our support for unification. 7 member states have their embassies in Pyongyang, and we try to continue also our humanitarian assistance to the most disadvantaged people, children, women in the north of the country. So this matter is also high on our agenda, as we know very well how it is to live in a divided country, on a divided peninsula, and as we have unified the European peninsula, UK stays, of course, our island aside, we hope that we can also help in the unification of the Korean peninsula one day. And again, when I came here, some matters came to my attention where I think we can really give some added value and expand our cooperation. And let me name the 3 issues where I have become very active in Korea, or in particular the last couple of months since my arrival. The first issue is climate policy. Ambassador has already mentioned the Paris deal, the signature in New York, and now we wait for the implementation, in fact for the ratification of the climate treaty. I hope it will soon very happen also in Korea. And again, next Friday, we start our cooperation with the ministry here in order to make the trading system for greenhouse gases better working. And I don't tell you any secret, we think that Korea can do more. Korea has ambitious targets for reducing climate gases until 2030. We don't know how far you have already achieved in this term, but I think it's particularly an issue where young people must get interested and know how the planet should look like in the future. You will live there longer than me, and therefore climate issue, I think, deserves to be high, not only on our bilateral agenda, but also on the agenda of Korean domestic politics here, in order not only to reduce greenhouse gases because of job losses in some industries, but to have an active policy for renewable energies, for a recycling economy, for a new way of a creative economy which works also in a sustainable way. The other issue which came to my attention is the situation of gender policies. Europe is a front rider in this. It was in Europe that more than 100 years ago in Finland, the first time election rights for women were introduced. And gender balance, I think, the work-life balance, the question how women can return to work after successful studies and after a family break is high on the agenda. Because I think this is an issue where in a society with decreasing birth rates, the future of the economy can also be preserved and kept. Without empowerment of women, as many European countries have done so, the future also of Asian economies, because Korea is not the only country which has such a challenge, can only be improved. So this is an issue where we try to work closely together as well against discrimination on base of gender, also on base of sexual orientation. And in fact, the intergenerational justice is a matter we have to increasingly address. It made me particularly unhappy when I saw that all the young people who have voted in UK to remain were only these who really went to vote, and the majority of them stayed at home. So I just appeal to you, and to whom should I say, you are interested in diplomacy, in politics. It's very important to build a vibrant democratic society where all age groups participate, get interested, elect, and make their case. And therefore, issues of intergeneration justice, of gender issues, of all kind of discrimination are high on our agenda as well. And the third issue, which came to our attention about 4 weeks ago, we had our development consultations. So you see we have bilateral cooperation on a working level in many, many settings and groups, that Korea is one of the countries, perhaps the country, with the best development record itself. Therefore, and as an OECD and G20 member, we think that Korea should really fast catch up with the level of official development assistance it gives around the world. There are targets for all countries to meet. Some of our countries in Europe have already gone beyond this 0.7% of their GDP. Others are coming up slowly. And Korea is a country which has, as a latecomer to the OECD, also to catch up, to spend more, hopefully, than the 0.14% in the moment for development agencies, because Korea has development also in global terms. Korea can demonstrate the great success it has done itself in development. Korea needs friends more than many other countries in the world because of the situation on the peninsula. And finally, development assistance is also a very good catalyst for more trade, more export, for economic diplomacy and outreach to countries in Southeast Asia, in Africa, wherever it's needed. So these are 3 issues where we think we can still reinforce our cooperation, because yes, we have so much in common. We are like-minded partners in human rights, democracy, rule of law, market economy, and we have no other choice and work together to address also the global challenges in our neighborhoods, in the Korean neighborhood, even beyond the north, and in the neighborhood of Europe, with our biggest problem in the moment, which is not the UK, but which is migration, where Europe has seen last year more than 1 million refugees coming to its shores, where we have to extend our humanitarian assistance, where we have to integrate them in our societies, and where we can only hope that the cause of the conflicts in the Middle East, a close neighbor to Europe, will be solved someday in order to bring people back home to their own country. So also in this, we share responsibilities with Korea. We are very much in favor of joint action in all these areas. I invited the foreign minister just 2 days ago to the Afghanistan conference, which the EU will organize in Brussels, beginning of October this year. And so we have many challenges we can meet together, also in the global outlook. Therefore, I just recommend to you, have a look into, 2 days ago, our High Representative, Federica Mogherini, has published the new EU global strategy. We had a security strategy 12 years ago. It needs to be amended. As young diplomats, have a look. You'll find it on our websites. We have now a new approach, how we can better treat problems globally around us in the neighborhood, and how to cooperate with our closest partner in Korea, because this is the case that Korea is ahead of all other countries in Asia as our closest partner with these 3 agreements in force. So let me close this address and tell you that we will not stop to build on the European projects, that we will also, I'm very optimistic, this is the duty of a European official in fact, I'm very optimistic that we will find also a settlement for the challenge which was posed last week by the vote in UK I don't need in the moment to comment further on this because everything needs time, and so we will make up our mind and we will find a solution which will not affect our closest partners around the world. Because, yes, we try to build our relationship. You know, there is a saying, many colleagues have it in Brussels and their voice. They say, we can build the paradise in Europe if the French are the cook, the Brits the policemen, the Italians the lovers, the Germans the technicians, and everything is organized by the Swiss. This is how we try, because the other is a matter of history, and we have overcome. When the Germans have been the policemen, the Brits the cooks, the English the cooks, the French the now I lose my track. The French the technicians, the Swiss the lovers, and everything was organized by the Italians. So you see, having in mind also that we play peacefully these days in the European Soccer Championship, try to find the best in peaceful playing together. I hope this attracts you, in particular the next days before the final days. Thank you for your attention. I wish you more traveling, interest, taking part in the European project also from faraway Korea, and thank you very much for your invitation today.